If you're using progress monitoring and ABA the right way, reassessments shouldn't feel like such a chore. They should be a natural part of the learning process. But how do you know when it's time to reevaluate your programs? In today's episode, we're breaking down how to track progress meaningfully and how often to reassess and how to use the data to keep your programming relevant and effective. Let's move beyond just collecting data and start using it to guide real, impactful change.
Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna.
We are behavior analysts who create weekly content about how to teach kids with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about reassessments and progress monitoring in ABA. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
So, when my daughter was younger, she was on an IEP for reading, and it was a real struggle for her. And they put her on a specific program. And then it was COVID, and the world shut down, school shut down, everything else. Fast forward to the next year, to September, the teacher contacted me and said, well, can you come to this IEP meeting? Does this date or this date work for you? And I said, well, why is she doing an IEP meeting? I taught her how to read. Well, it was COVID shutdown, and over the summer, like she can read if you reassessed her. The teacher had not even reassessed. She basically was like, well, she was on an IEP last year. It was COVID, nothing happened. So I'm just assuming she doesn't know how to read still. So we'll send her back to IEP. And it was really frustrating for me as a parent because I really did lose faith in the school system. I went, can you please reassess? And then I think about our learners and I think about how we have to be continually monitoring their progress as well and making sure that we're, continually assessing their progress.
Yeah, reassessment is really more than a formality. Although some of us, it really creeps up on you every few months. You're like, what? I have to reassess
Again?
already? Again, it's here. It is an important part of monitoring progress because so often within the APA programs that we're doing, we are in the weeds. Like we're in it, it's the details, we're going through programs, and reassessment gives us a chance to take a step back, look at the big picture, and make sure that we're not just getting stuck in the details, that we're teaching the right things. Because what we're teaching has to really matter. And only by taking that step back are we really going to know. We really want to ensure that we're not wasting time. Like, have things been mastered? Is this still relevant? You know what? Our kids are getting older. Should we keep teaching this? We need to keep asking ourselves those questions.
I have a few students who fly through things, and sometimes, if you teach them one or two skills, they have this aha moment and they're like, oh, that's all you wanted me to do? Okay. And then they've just mastered a whole bunch of things, and it doesn't reflect on an assessment, but it also doesn't always reflect in our programming. So, our programming can become stagnant because we actually can't keep up with our learners. And then I have other learners who are making slower progress. They can learn, but the progress is slow. And sometimes our teaching steps are too large and our data is showing that we're not making progress at all. So we need to reassess so that we can go, okay, maybe we need to teach some prerequisite skills or break down these skills that we are teaching into smaller steps. So we need to do those reassessments. And sometimes, like Shira said, we can be in the weeds, and I'm guilty of this myself. I'm like, oh, this reassessment right now is such a waste of my time. Like I could be doing X, Y, and Z, more. And it's the answer is no. Like it's not a waste of your time because it actually is boosting the student progress, and it's actually driving it forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned the importance of like ongoing progress monitoring, and we do that all the time. Like we have to do that every time we're checking in. It's that session by session data. It's the data that we're looking at as to, what is the student struggling with, and what are they doing well with? How are they learning this skill? But the reassessment is more of like a zoomed outlook, in that we're able to know whether the whole program needs to shift. It's really looking at their overall trajectory. We've been teaching receptive labels for the last 6 months, and while we've been updating that progress ongoingly, and we're constantly looking at the data, at the 6 month mark, we could be like, well, should we even keep teaching this at all? And is their trajectory showing us that they've learned enough, or maybe they need a different teaching style, or maybe we just need to, reevaluate.
And reassessments are a really great conversation starter.
Mhm.
And it's a really great way to promote that conversation to make sure that our goals are still meaningful.
So there's a couple ways to do the reevaluation or the reassessment. You could do it at like regular intervals. You know, when we work in a school system, it's very common to have IEP season, so we'll overlap assessment season with that. And no matter when a student starts their ABA sessions, we'll reassess at certain times of the year because that's what works with our schedule. But it could also be based on the learner. It could be because you're really noticing a lack of growth or things have really plateaued. And no matter what you do, you really can't quite figure out why. That could be one reason. It could be that maybe the opposite is true and they've all of a sudden gained a whole new set of skills. Um, Sometimes that could make us want to reassess. It could be that, you know, they're even starting in a new school, starting a new medication, starting a new program. They could be doing a whole bunch of things that might make us want to reassess where their skills are.
There could be an increase in challenging behavior, and we need to reassess that and go, okay, well, wait a second. Why is this escape related behavior related to their programming? Or, as Shira said, there might be a change in their environment that's bringing on challenging behavior. So we need to sit back and go, okay, well, what's that all about? And look at that. We also want to look at generalization. So when we're doing a reassessment, we want to say, okay, you know, the student has mastered this many skills or these types of skills at the table or in session or during play, but what about generalization? What are their families reporting?
Yeah, because often they'll show us that they're able to do the skill in real life, but on an assessment, they're not really showing it. So that generalization gives us cues as to like what really is the student struggling with. Um, when you are doing that reassessment, you should make it collaborative. It's a good time to, like Shana said earlier, ask the parents, meet with them, talk about the goals, involve the team. Are there other therapists on the team or other caregivers that should have input? And when you're doing that, always keeping in mind that like it is a sensitive conversation often with parents. Sometimes they may wanted to see more growth than they're really seeing. We could focus on the things that the child is doing well, and then maybe talking about the things that they might be struggling with.
We have another podcast on collaborating with other professionals. That's on episode 82, so check that out.
And really using that conversation as a way to celebrate the learner, celebrate that learner's success. One of the best tips I've had is we'll often do IEP meetings with families, and families come in and it's very stressful for them. And this can happen often with ABA reassessments, meetings with a whole bunch of teams. If you're a BCBA collaborating with a whole team and you're talking about their assessment and their goals, starting the conversation with something personal about the child, something that you just, you know, really enjoy about them, something cute that they did or something funny, and reminding the parent that they are more than this assessment, that they are a whole person and that you respect them and you appreciate their child as the whole individual that they are. And that's a really nice way to start a conversation that might really be focusing on some of their weaknesses.
Yeah, that family-friendly language and drop the jargon. Please, please, please don't talk in behavioral terms with families, making sure that it's really a personable conversation.
And when you are probing those skills, you should use any opportunity to probe them in a natural way. It doesn't have to be a rigid, formal, tabletop, discrete trial testing. You can incorporate lots of naturalistic observations. It doesn't have to be contrived. If you're seeing skills in between formal assessments, great, fill it in. It could be a more dynamic process. You don't have to wait until a certain date where you're going to test them on all these skills, and that's going to tell you what it is that they've mastered.
Sometimes just talking to therapists, watching, going in and watching a session can be not quite enough, but it's like it's enough as a start. So sometimes as I'm doing a reassessment, instead of going in right away with my, big assessment tools and check off boxes and everything else, I watch a session and I can check, 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 check. We have a how-to ABA assessment that combines, beginner, intermediate, advanced learners. It combines some of the goals from the ABLES and the VB map, but it also, the way it's worded, it's across operants and there's a place to write some notes and things like that. I often use it and I'll just go and observe an ABA session. And sometimes I'll say to the therapist who's probably more paired with the student than I am, I might say, hey, like, can you show me the prepositions program you were working on again? Oh, how many prepositions has he mastered there? And those types of things. And sometimes just watching that session will give me half of my assessment already filled out, and then I might have notes and have to test the other half, but I don't have to test the entire thing again since we know the student.
And when you're reassessing, you want to look for like the meaningful ways that they're using the skill. It's not enough that you've tested their rote responding ability of that skill. You're looking for them really understanding that and having it being independent and generalizing it and being able to show it in multiple contexts with different people for different purposes, obviously, depending on what the skill is. But they should be able to show it in a meaningful way to be able to be fully mastered when you're reassessing.
I just took a deep breath as soon as Shira said that because I still have visions of teaching intraverbals. So when the ables first came out, we were so excited about the different operants and everything else. And I remember having this list of WH questions, and it was awesome because we taught our kids to memorize these WH questions, and they were like rock stars, you know. And I would be able to say things like, you know, why do you sleep? And they'd say, because I'm tired, or why do you eat? Because I'm hungry, or why do why do you drink? Because I'm thirsty. And it was sounded so awesome. And then I realized like they don't really even know what that means. Do they really understand what tired means? Do they understand what these things mean? And we had to go back and actually teach and fill in the gaps and ensure that comprehension. So making sure that, you know, your assessments aren't just that and they're not just, you know, teaching to an assessment. I think we've got another podcast episode on please don't teach to an assessment. But also when you're testing, making sure that you are looking for them using things contextually so that we're really ensuring that understanding.
Yeah, so now that you've done a reassessment, you have all this great information. It's a good opportunity to, like we said, have that big picture look at the programs. What do we want to retire? Which programs do we want to keep doing? What's mastered? What's working? What's not working? This is usually when we'll make like big changes. If we feel like something, you know, they're almost done, they can move on to something else. This is the time that we would do that. You want to really like refine any of the current goals that they're working on. So what needs to be changed here? Can they be more independent? Can we bait the prompts? And then add in any new goals that might be, you know, worth teaching at this point.
I think we need to put like a little asterisk beside refine current goals because, you know, whenever I'm supervising, you know, whether that's, you know, once a week, once every couple weeks, once a month, it's never once every 6 months. Like I'm constantly refining current goals. So don't wait 6 months for a reassessment to do all that. But so it's just a little asterisk that yes, at the 6 month mark, definitely refine your goals, but don't wait until the 6 month mark to do that either.
Yeah, that is definitely one of like a common pitfalls is that you wait too long to reassess. That might mean your programming is outdated or irrelevant. Another one is you might be reassessing too frequently, which might not give you the right kind of information either. You haven't given the learner a chance or the team a chance to really make progress before reassessing. Another common mistake is only focusing on deficits instead of what a learner has gained and what their strengths are. And if you need a different assessment that's able to highlight that more, that might be a good time to do that. If you've been working within a certain assessment and it's not really showing any of the nuance, gain of skills that your learner has, then switch assessments and pick something that's going to be a better picture of the learner. And then not using that assessment information for meaningful programming is another common mistake. So an assessment is only going to be as good as the way that you interpret it and the way that you use it and the way that it influences your program in a meaningful way.
So when I think of doing assessments and I think of doing reassessments, you know, I really don't think of it being fun. I mean, we talk about it being like, let's play and let's have fun and everything else, but as soon, I think I've got some negative word association there, like reassessment. Ah, right? But it can be fun. It really can be easy. It's really not daunting, and we should be making it more fun. So how do we do that?
So you could build reassessment into games, into routines. It doesn't have to be, like we said earlier, a learner sitting at a table and being tested. Definitely not being tested by somebody they don't know or somebody who's just going through it as like a, you know, a checklist. It's also a really good opportunity to engage with the team and talk with them about what's working for them. You know, reflect on how far the learner has come. So often the RBT or the ABA therapist, the one working with that child day in and day out just wants to tell you how much progress they've made, not just because they're, you know, you're checking off an assessment, but because like how cute is it that now they get to tell me that they want a hug, and we have an opportunity to do that too and hear from the people that are really involved with them.
Sometimes, you know, reassessments, it's, you know, really heavily focused on data, which is what we want. But sometimes just the nuances of, say, video is also great. So, you know, with parent permission and obviously with HIPAA compliant software and all that kind of stuff, get permission to video every 6 months. And then, it's a nice way to look back on things too. Like, remember when your child first started, let's take a look at this
Mm,
video. And sometimes that video for parents especially can say so much more than the data and the graphs that you're showing.
it's so true. For more information on progress monitoring in ABA, click the link on or around this video or in the description to join our free membership and access the How to ABA assessment checklist. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos and leave a like and comment below if you have further questions.